Welcome to the Altered Moments podcast. Thanks for tuning in and making a choice to see God is still alive and at work changing people's lives. This is a show filled with stories of grit and gratitude to inspire you to never give up no matter what comes your way. And now, here's your host, Kimberly Stevens.
Welcome to Altered Moments podcast. I am Kimberly Stevens, and I'm coming to you today from Jacksonville. So if you see a different screen, that is why. You know, this show is about the journey that we all take, and there's always obstacles in all of our roads. And when we choose to keep our eyes on the Lord, we walk a straight path. It may not always be an easy path, but we walk knowing that we walk into hope. And that's a really amazing focus. When I look back on some of the shattered moments in my life and how I got here, and then I look forward to my Lord, the hope that I see is so huge. And looking back, I know that He got me through to this point in the road, and that no matter what comes my way, I'm going to get to the end, to hope one day. And today's guest, wow, she has a story that is going to reiterate everything that I just said. And I'm going to let her talk more about herself. And I'm just going to bring her to the stage right now. Lori, welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. I'm super, super excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So Lori Vober coming to us from Arizona. And you are very good friends with my friend Kristen.
Yes.
Who was
yes.
actually our very first podcast guest.
Yes. Kristen's a very good friend. I appreciate her friendship very much. We met at Christian Communicators Conference in Dallas for both speakers, and God's had me on an amazing journey for 22 years now, longer than that, but 22 years through a medical journey. I often say when I'm speaking, life is often so good for each and every one of us until it isn't. And that's just life, right? We often think that everything's going great until in the blink of the eye, it isn't. And then we look back and we don't even realize how good we had it until something goes wrong. And my husband and I started our marriage off and our relationship off in Minnesota. I was moved there from Oklahoma as a job transfer, and my background is marketing, sales, and customer support. We had been trying to start our family for about 2 years and had not yet been successful. I had just transitioned my career from the airline industry to our church full time, hoping that change of pace would alter our family planning and help me become a mom, which was truly, I was that woman that just dreamed of being a mom. I dreamed of what it was going to be like to tell my husband. We did everything we were supposed to do. We had the dog because you're supposed to train with the dog before you have the child. We had the minivan, we had the house, we had the fence. We had everything except the child. And so we were on our way, and I started this new job in January of 2003, and God had other plans. And I now have realized through my journey that there's so many times that it's our plans and it's God's plans, and we must stay focused on what His plans are. And it's 3 weeks into this new job at the church that I had quite a massive hemorrhagic stroke. For those that are not familiar, there are two types of strokes. One's more typical stroke that's caused by a blood clot. Mine was caused by a brain bleed, and it was a birth defect that was never caught, and it affected the whole left side of my body. I was literally unconscious within an hour of my symptoms, and us calling 911. And things just happened quickly. I went from a real bad headache, feeling sick to my stomach, not really knowing at age 29 signs of stroke, us calling 911, to lights out, completely unconscious. They rushed me to a trauma center. They found the brain bleed. They rushed me into a emergency brain surgery to stop the bleeding, and I was in a 17-day drug-induced coma as my brain swelled, and then they tried to heal my brain before bringing me out. And when I woke up, my whole left side was gone. In my mind now, my middle was my right side, and rather than starting our family, we were starting life all over again.
Wow.
You know,
You were
I
29.
I'm 29,
And
29.
how long had you been married at this point?
We had been married 5 years.
Wow.
But the story continues with challenges along the way. I was in the hospital a total of 2 months. Had a second 11-hour brain surgery to remove the malformation, so another stroke wouldn't happen. Went home in a wheelchair. That was right after September 11th. And as many will remember, aviation was not the most stable industry. And unfortunately, my husband did lose his job 6 months post stroke. So that caused us to move from Minnesota to Arizona. I developed epilepsy from the stroke soon after our move. And it was really a lot of challenges through the years, but a lot of amazing blessings. I found a neuro rehab center here in Phoenix. Therapy became my full time job for years and years and years. And I'm making a little light of it at this point because, I know we're a little crunched on time, but, when you go through challenges like this, you just have choices to make. And my choice at that point was, what's the plan? I want to get better. I want my life back. And in my mind, that was working hard and physical therapy. And I treated it like a full time job for 7 years. And on year 8 in 2011, we decided we really wanted to start a family. So we started that through adoption. We adopted 3 children from Colombia, South America. We don't do anything, easily, and we didn't know what 3 children would be like. My husband and I are both only children, and so we adopted a sibling group. And the whole parenting journey, again, just like the stroke recovery, was blessings and challenges. And I've learned so much on this journey about a stronger faith, depending on God, um, how my friends can understand me better about vulnerability. And it's just been truly one step in front of the other in perseverance, resilience, and learning more and more about trusting my Creator.
So tell us now a little bit about your family, because now you kind of told us how your family was put together. Um,
Yes,
so now
yes,
you live in the Phoenix area, and your 3 kids
yes.
are how old?
So now my kids are 20, 22, and 24. Our goal when we adopted our children was to raise them in the best home environment we could, to get them through all of high school, to give them a technical degree and an education for them to be independent and on their own. And through a lot of tough love, we did that. And they are actually all on their own. We are full circle empty nesters again. And
Wow.
2 of my children, my 2 daughters, are actually moms. We have 4 grandchildren with one more on the way now. And
Wow.
it is it sometimes they talk to us, sometimes they don't. It depends on if they're happy with us or not. But I have learned so much about um, you know raising children, supporting and loving and nurturing adult children, and also just appreciating the moments. I think when you're younger, when you're younger and you're young married, you're so anxious to get to the next step. And then when you're a young mom, you're so anxious to get to the next step. And then when you get a little more mature, you finally get to a point where you just sit back and just can enjoy. And I'm not as anxious to get to the next step. My husband and I are going on 27 years of marriage. I am so incredibly grateful. I have such an amazing companion who has really stood beside me. He grew up in a household with a mom who battled cancer for 13 years of his life. And so I really contribute the way his dad handled, um, you know, um, taking care of his mom, and unfortunately she did pass. But I think him watching that transaction and that love and that support really made him the spouse he is for me. And we have an amazing relationship, an amazing love. And we're just really living our best life, challenges included. And who doesn't have challenges, right? And it's just a matter of choices of what we're going to do with them. And are we going to be? I always say now, are we going to be bitter? Or are we going to be better? And we always have a choice.
Yeah. So you wrote a book about that.
I
It's
did.
called
I did.
Choices. And so tell us a little bit about why you picked that title and maybe what inspired that and why that's still relevant, because you're talking about it and we were talking about it. We were actually even praying about it before we went live just now.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I have to say the title is all God ordained, because I thought I would write a book about my stroke, about the equipment I've used to get better, and God really said, "Nope, this is what you're going to write about." And my kids were just my last two kids were finishing their high school. It was right after the pandemic, and I really feel like it was in the quietness of being at home that God got my attention and said, "Now, this is the time you need to start sharing your story." And that's when the book really started formulating. And my husband actually would walk through at night and say, "Oh, what are you working on?" I'd say, "Oh, I'm writing my book." And he'd be like, "You're doing what?" I said, "Oh, I'm writing my book." And every night it's just like same conversation. And he'd just kind of chuckle and say, "Okay." And about 6 months into this same routine,
Yeah,
I said, "Okay, I'm done. Here's my book." And it's really about my story, but I put reflection questions in the end of each chapter for the reader to really reflect on their journey, because I wanted it not just to be about me, but for the reader to really think about what's going on in their life, and what's God doing in their life, and reflecting on their journey. And it is about my medical journey. It's about raising children. It's just about life, because no matter where we're at, whether you're going through a medical journey or a financial journey or a relationship journey, we all go through challenges, and that all comes down to a choice of getting stuck or moving forward.
absolutely. So your book is called Choices. When you're faced with a challenge, which choice will you make?
That's correct. That's correct. And you can find my book on my website, which is my full name. But I had really no idea that I would choose to love writing and speaking as much as I did. I actually started writing in compilations after this book came out. My 10th compilation just published, and you will find all those on my website also. So I started
And
writing alongside other authors.
spell it out for people who are listening. It's LoriVober. VOL.
Yes. Uh,
Spell that for me.
yes.
VOBER.
VOBER. So LORIVOBER.com.
Awesome. Perfect.
Yes. Yes.
And
So
go ahead.
So I would just encourage others. I've learned so much, thrown in there was, epilepsy from the stroke. As my book was coming out, I was pre-diagnosed with ovarian cancer, had a full hysterectomy, and thankfully I'm cancer free. That started a whole nother journey of some of my closest friends being cancer fighters, and that was just amazing that I was able to have that relationship, and I got to volunteer at the cancer center where my hysterectomy was. We actually found out through that experience that I was not able to have children, and we didn't know that at the time when we were first trying to have children. So there's so many things looking back now that God always has the ultimate plan, and so many times we question why or what if, and we get so bogged down. And I've learned that sometimes there's no answers to the whys or the what ifs, and we can spend all day questioning and getting even angry and bitter at the whys and the what ifs, But if we would concentrate more on a perspective of gratitude and thankfulness and just looking to him of, okay, this is a challenge, but what is the opportunity that goes along with this? That carries us so much farther than the whys and what ifs. And, I often used to think, well, when I get to heaven one day, then there'll be answers. But I think at this point, one day when we get to heaven, we're going to be so excited about being in front of our Creator and in glory, and none of it's going to even matter. So,
I
I
say
just learned just to be thankful.
I say the same thing. I used to think that after my son died, especially, that when I got to heaven, I just couldn't wait to get there and to just say, "Why, God? Give me the answer." And now I really know, and it makes me tear up a little bit because my heart is it's so soft now about this
Mm,
issue,
yes.
where it used to be so angry, and I don't need to know the why anymore. I just know that when I do meet my Savior and my God face to face, that it's not going to matter. It's all
Yeah,
going to be amazing. And
absolutely.
the the pain that I've had here will be released. It will be gone. There will be no more death or crying or tears.
Won't that be wonderful?
Absolutely.
Yes. And the other thing I've learned is, we have so many prayers, and we do get upset as humans when God doesn't answer the prayers the way we want him to. But then it goes back to his decision. I love the story, and I know the Chosen. A lot of people follow the Chosen, and there are some fictitious things that the Chosen has put in. But the clip with little James speaking to Jesus for those that have a physical disability is so powerful when it comes to miracles, and it speaks so strongly to me in the fact that we have to trust God with the miracles he chooses for us, and not the miracles we want. And yes, day in and day out, for those of us that do have a physical disability, is hard, and it is a struggle. But if God had chosen to heal me completely the way my heart would want to make life easier, I wouldn't have the journey. I wouldn't have the faith I know that I have now. And I also wouldn't have the testimony to be able to go and speak to other survivors and be as real. And they wouldn't see me as believable as they can see me, because they what you see is what you get, and they can see. I know when you're looking at me and when other people are looking at me right now, they I look and sound like a normal individual. But if you saw me in person, you would see my left upper extremity doesn't really function all the way, and I do walk with a limp. And so when I'm speaking and moving in person, they can view that and they can see that, and that's encouraging to my stroke community. And if I was healed all the way, I could share my journey, but them physically seeing that takes it to a whole nother level. So we have to, again, keep our eyes on God's plan, not ours.
I wanted to go back to when you were diagnosed with ovarian cancer,
Mm.
and you had just, if I have the timeline right, I hope, if I don't, correct me, but you had just had your stroke, and then you found out you had ovarian cancer. Prior to that, you were full speed ahead, hoping to have children any day, and um, two massive roadblocks. And it wasn't your choice, obviously, to have a hysterectomy and to not have biological children, but you made another choice to embrace the family that God had already chosen for you. And can you talk a little bit about that transition from your choice being to have biological children and to choosing to embrace and love the children that God had already chosen for you?
Yes. Now, timeline wise, we had already adopted when I had my hysterectomy. And
Oh, okay.
but I wish I had known that I was unable to have children when we adopted, because we made that choice to adopt because of my disability and epilepsy. And then we adopted, and then I got the ovarian cancer diagnosis and scare, and then I had the hysterectomy and found out we really couldn't. And then it all came together of, oh my goodness, all along this was God's plan. These children were God's plan. And so I wish I had known that, because since then I have gone back, and it's really because of the speaking and my world just becoming so big. I concentrated so much on the physical recovery that I missed the emotional recovery. And I think that's really important for many that are going through medical challenges. And I speak a lot of this to my stroke community. And I went through Grief Share after this past fall, and it really helped me. And I don't think we talk enough in the medical world about grieving the losses that we go through when it is a medical challenge. And it's not a sign of weakness, and it's not a sign of complaint to grieve your loss when it's a medical challenge. And I lost me. I lost my dreams of a career and of having the family I had always dreamed of, thinking I was going to get. And although I got to be a mom, it wasn't the same experience. And I had to emotionally grieve that in order to move on in a more healthy manner. And I wish I had done all that and had been instructed and just even coaxed to do that before even becoming a mom. Because looking back now, I would have been a healthier and a better mom had I gone through that prior. And so now, as a mom of um, adult children and a grandma, I'm going backwards and saying to my girls, I wish I had known this, but this. Do this for your children, because they still have trauma. They still have trauma from built up inside them that I can still feed into them. It's never
Yeah.
over. The parenting journey is never over.
I think you bring up a really good point as well, is that when we do have a medical challenge or a physical challenge, we tend to focus on the physical healing or
Hmm.
overcoming of that challenge. And we do neglect our hearts. And, I
Yes.
know when I had breast cancer, it was
Mm.
all beat cancer, beat cancer, beat cancer. Um, but I had a double mastectomy and reconstruction. And so I lost half of what society would say makes me a woman. And
Yes. Yes.
but the fact that I was still here, I guess, is the trade off. But there is a grieving of losing body parts. And I know that that sounds a little bit silly, but I'm really now, 15 years later, starting to understand how that affected me emotionally as well as physically, not just on the emotional level of I had cancer, but on the emotional level of I'm changed, I'm forever.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's not a physical disability that I've had to overcome, though it has changed my swimming career. And um, there is pain with physical activity, and so things are very different. And um, I think you bring up a point that we really neglect, probably especially as women and mothers, that we don't take
Yes.
care of our own emotional well-being. They say on a plane, put on the oxygen mask, put it on yourself first before you reach out to put it on other people. And as women and moms, especially, I think we want to take care of everyone else before we really heal our own. emotional.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you bring up a good point. So many of our cancer fighting friends lose their hair when they go through chemo, and people don't understand how much that affects them. And they're like, "Well, just wear a wig, or just wear a hat, or just wear this," and they don't understand it's not a matter of looks that they're grieving. It's a matter of a body part that they've lost. And it's again, it's a grieving. It's not a look necessarily. It's a loss that unless you go through it, you just don't understand. And I think that was the first time when I chose to volunteer. And honestly, I am so grateful that of God's time. And that just goes back to God has miraculous timing and everything. My book had just come out. I mean, I was literally in the middle of my marketing plan and book launch when all this transpired. My book came out in March, and I had my hysterectomy in April. I actually asked them to wait on the hysterectomy until I could finish my book launch. And so then I jumped in and started volunteering in June at the cancer center because I felt like timing was of the essence. And there's got to be a reason that I published this book and I got this diagnosis. And at that point, when I came out of the hysterectomy and I didn't have a cancer diagnosis, I look back now and I think there was no reason for me go back to the cancer center. I mean, I could have walked away at that point and never have a relationship there again because I didn't have cancer. But some of those friends became some of my best friends because that was the first time I had a friend that said, I understand. I understand your medical challenge. It's not the same, but I understand. And I going through a cancer care ministry training there and volunteering there, I understood the emotional and the grieving for the very first time. And that's really what kickstarted the emotions that led into Grief Share for me. Over time. And so, I think we just sometimes we say, why God? But, He uses all sorts of things. And it's just like a domino effect. One thing leads to another leads to. So I'm constantly on the outlook now of anytime something happens, I'm like, okay, this happened and this was not great timing, but there's got to be a reason. So tell me why, God. What am I missing here? And I think we have to do that. We got to be our eyes open to the bigger picture.
Yeah, I like to
Oh,
say, yeah, give me eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart to receive
love
where
that. Yeah.
where you're working. And
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, um, given what you went through with your stroke, and that you do have some physical remnants that are visible, can you talk a little bit about how you want to be seen by other
Mm,
people?
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, both for myself and for others that are in a similar situation as I am. I have learned that it's your personality that shines. It's not your disability or your abilities. And it's taken me a long time to get to that point. And I felt in my own self-confidence less than my peers. And I realized no one else felt that way, and it was all me feeling that way. And I put myself lower in my abilities because of my physical disability. And my physical disability wasn't prohibiting my speaking, it wasn't prohibiting my writing, it was just prohibiting my self confidence. And so I now tell my stroke community when I'm speaking to them and sharing with them is don't ever lower your standards or your well-being or your identity and make your identity your disability because what people see is your personality and the identity that God gave you has nothing to do with the challenge that came into your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you do anything practically speaking? Like, did you write down um, truth to combat some of the feelings that you were having, or how did you, on a very practical um, roster, like what did you do practically to move your mind from feeling one way, or your heart from feeling one way, to seeing things in a different light?
Yes. One is, I think it's very important to be in the Word. That's first and foremost, and that's been really important to just grow in the Word, and to be in a community of believers. Um, uh, so, I went really honestly from being a leader of a Bible study to a participant, because I realized that by leading, I was not um, I was not growing like I needed to. I wasn't seeking um, the I wasn't seeking I wasn't seeking and drenching myself in God's word as much as I needed to, because I was so busy paying attention to my ladies and making sure everybody else was okay. I wasn't paying attention to what God had to say to me, and fulfilling the wisdom of so many other mentors around me. And writing has been huge for me. I reflect a lot in my writing. So I would encourage anyone that's going through a medical challenge, you don't have to write a book. You don't have to even write a blog. Just journal and get it out. Worship music is huge. I love to just drive and have the worship music. If you're
I do that
stuck
too.
and you don't know where to go, just play worship music and let God speak to you that way. But I think, first spend time with Him.
Yeah. Do you have a verse that is your kind of go-to?
Yeah, I have several. I used in choices. I used Jeremiah 29:11 through 13, and that's a very popular verse of, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, and not to harm you." But I love verse 13, because a lot of times when we see it on graduation stuff, and we see it on plaques and pot holders and every towels, people don't
Yeah,
pay
right.
attention to verse 13 that says, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with your whole heart." And I think that's the key. Yeah, He has great plans for us, and He will prosper us, and He won't harm us. But it's when we seek Him with our whole heart that we truly find Him. But really, I really love 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18. And this is where my perspective of gratitude came from, and where it says, "Rejoice always. Pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." And we can have we can be unhappy with our circumstances and still have a perspective of gratitude and still be thankful. And I learned through this that I'm not going to physically recover everything I thought I was. And stroke and therapy is going to be lifelong. I mean, I just celebrated 22 years, and I am still in therapy 3 days a week. And
Wow.
so, it's ongoing, but that doesn't mean with a positive and healthy emotional outlook, I can't have a great, wonderful um, life filled with joy and hope and gratitude. And I think that's the key, is back to what we were talking about, having healthy emotions really can change everything.
Yeah. And giving ourselves the grace and mercy of our Heavenly
Yes,
Father
yes,
to
yes.
feel those feelings, to even know what those feelings are. And journaling helps me a lot as well. I have spent, I don't know how many hours just writing. And sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to write. And I pick up my pen and I think, oh, I have nothing to say today. And I will pen pages and pages. And
Oh my
just,
goodness.
right. And getting that out, and then seeing it and sometimes rereading it, and inviting God to bring his healing into what I just wrote is life changing.
Yes. That's key. I love that you said that. That's wonderful. Yes, because again, it's inviting him in. It's a he knows everything, but he wants that communication with us. He's just dying to be. We'll be the first to. I always say we'll be the first to meet a new friend and say, let's go to coffee. But how many times do we make a coffee date with Jesus?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Something really
yeah.
cute. I just,
Only other thing I was thinking.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was
No,
going
I
to
was
say
just going to
something
say
really,
the other thing I was thinking is,
I think
go
we
ahead.
have a delay. Our internet is
I do think we have a
kind of,
delay. It's
yeah.
going in and
Um,
out.
so I do have a coffee date every morning with Jesus. And what's
I
really
love
cute
that.
is I get my coffee, and when I'm making my coffee, my dog runs over to the couch where I sit down and I read scripture, and then I journal a little bit, and then I pray. And my dog loves sitting there with me the whole time. But it's so cute because I think he thinks I'm making a coffee date with him, because as soon as the coffee goes, he runs over to the sofa. And I just think, oh,
Oh, I love
even he
that.
time with God. Really
I
cute.
love that. I love that. That's awesome. That's great. Well, I was going to
Yeah.
say that I learned too along the way, if this helps anybody, that we can't change what other people feel about us and our circumstances, and we can't control that. And I've learned so much about vulnerability and asking for help, and just just connecting with others. And I used to think if I was vulnerable, I wouldn't have any friends, and no one would want to be my friend if I shared everything with them. And I learned along the way that I can't control my situation, but by being vulnerable, that's a chance for us to connect. And someone once told me vulnerability and sharing is a chance to bless others. And you never know if someone else is going through that same situation and they're just as scared. So that just changed my perspective on sharing.
Yeah, I have been in a seminar all day, and the woman who has been speaking, she has said the same phrase several times. And I thought, okay, the last time she said it, I'm like, I'm writing it down because I don't want to forget this. And she she summed it up perfectly. She said, love others where they are and you be you. And,
Mm,
don't try to change their opinion of you or what you're doing or what God is doing in your life. Love them where they are, and continue on your own journey.
I love that. Yep. Yep. I just had a friend say to me earlier today, you have to get to a point where you recognize that everybody loves differently. And that's very similar. I think we all
Yeah.
have expectations on ourselves, but we have expectations on other people. And then we get disappointed when other people don't meet our expectations. And that's wrong of us because we can't expect others to act the way we want them to act. So I love that. That's I'm going to have to remember that.
Yeah, me too. We are
Yeah.
getting time to wrap up, and I wish we had many more hours because I feel like I have so many questions to ask you. Um, you have any final thoughts that you want to leave with us?
Um, I just, number one, thank you so much for having me on. And I'd like to encourage our listeners to, again, go on my website. You can find adoption and stroke resources. You can also find my monthly newsletter and sign up for chapter 1 of Choices. But I just encourage others in a world that we live in social media and technology, and where our peers seem to be number one for all of us, and we all like to be liked, whether we're 2 or we're 89. We all want to be liked. Let's remember, who the most important person is in our life, and I think sometimes we forget that. And the person that created us is really the only person that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. So well said. Lori Vober, I just want to spell that out. It's LORIVOB as in boy, ER, LoriVober.com. And visit her website, get the first chapter of Choices. Lori, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you to everyone who has tuned in live with us today and who will listen in the future. If we said anything that resonated with you, I'm very grateful. If you know someone who needs to hear this message, please share this out. Just take a second and share this with them. And remind everyone that we do have a choice. When tough things come, we can choose to become better or bitter. And that is the real altered moment. Lori, thank you again for being here. And thanks to everybody. And until next time, never give up.
We appreciate you for tuning in to this episode of Altered Moments. To get updates and new episodes, please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. And if you enjoyed today's show, please leave us a review. Until next time, remember, never give up.